he has never once spoken to this one. Yale has only ever seen his father during official clan business, from across a room, being ignored. His half-brothers take their cue from that and spend their free time inventing ways to make his life harder. So Yale hides where they aren't permitted to go, the clan library, and reads until the candles burn down. Yale Swordmad is a 6-year-old boy from one of the biggest clans in the seaside city, and on paper his life should be a good one. His mother was a legitimate wife, the servants still whisper that his parents actually loved each other, and legitimate sons get privileges the illegitimate children can only dream about. But his mother died the night he was born, and ever since then his father has treated him like the reason. The man is one of the most influential figures in the clan. He has dozens of children. There is one thing in that library he cannot touch. The restricted sections need permission, and his father could grant it with a single word. His father believes men speak with their fists and that training the body is the only path worth walking, and he considers a son who reads to be an embarrassment. So the word never comes. Yale stops asking. What nobody knows is that Yale isn't really 6. He belongs to a rare group of people who keep fragments of a life from before this one, and the fragment he kept is his own death. He remembers the pain. He remembers the helplessness. He does not remember the details, but he is certain that painful is far too gentle a word for what he felt. And one broken thought keeps surfacing out of that wreckage. Knowledge is power, and the lack of it is what put him in the ground. On his 4th birthday, a voice appeared inside his skull. It called itself the Last Wish System, said it was created by his own past life's dying wish, and told him it would unlock only when he had gathered a vast amount of knowledge. 2 years later, alone in the library long past midnight with servants already searching the halls for him, Yale closes a thick volume and the voice finally speaks again. The system is unlocked. His first mistake is answering it out loud, and he goes cold when he realizes how close he came to shouting his only real secret into a room that could have had someone in it. The system tells him nobody can detect it unless he reveals it himself, and Yale swears he will never be that careless again. The tutorial gives him 2 core functions. The database search lets him recall anything he has ever read. Perfectly. Forever. The quest menu hands him tasks and pays him for finishing them. Then it scans his body and soul and generates 2 more menus on the spot. The stats menu is humiliating. Vitality 3, Strength 1, Agility 1, Dexterity 7, Intelligence 10 and Wisdom 10, both sitting at the absolute ceiling a mortal can reach. Yale mutters that he knew he didn't exercise, but a single point of strength is insulting. The innate talent menu is worse. Under the system itself there is exactly 1 line. Magic latent talent lowest grade. In a world where you cannot become a magus at all without magical talent, he has been handed the weakest possible ticket into the only path his body is built for, and he has no elemental affinity whatsoever. Then he opens the quest menu and everything changes. There is already a completed quest sitting there. Reach 6 points in intelligence, wisdom, and dexterity. Reward, upgrade his magic talent. Yale claims it and watches lowest grade become low grade instantly. The next quest asks for 7 points. He claims that one too. In under a minute, in the dark, a 6-year-old has done something that takes grown practitioners decades. The scaling is obvious now, and he does the math with a grin because 10 points in every mind stat should mean high-grade talent. But the quest that stops him is a different one. Elemental affinity. Requirement mid-grade magic talent. Reward, an elemental affinity at perfect grade. Yale had been hoping for any affinity at all, and he is being offered the best one that exists. One last entry sits locked, storage space, gated behind something called the main chain quest, which needs 3 completed skill quests to open. Yale is 1 single point of dexterity away from all of it. The system tells him the fastest route to that point is mortal archery, which trains strength alongside it. He requests lessons the next morning and the servants file the request without a question, because there is no affection between them and never has been. Approval takes a week. He spends that week trying to do push-ups and discovers he cannot complete one. The gossip moves faster than the paperwork. Within days, the entire clan is talking about how the Bookworm has gone mad for physical training, and the story reaches every branch of the family, including the man who has spent 6 years pretending he doesn't have this son. He says nothing. A boy picking up a bow is still not a boy learning to speak with his fists. The one person the gossip reaches who actually cares is Ange. She is 5 years older than Yale, and she is not merely talented. She is a once-in-a-thousand-years event. Perfect grade healing elemental affinity, high-grade magic talent, already a 4-star mortal erudite, and Nisisai Academy recruited her personally instead of making her pay or test. Healing affinity is rare, healing spells are brutal to master, and healers are worth more than armies, which is why the Academy keeps her behind its walls and why Yale has seen her only a handful of times since she left. They write letters, and hers are the only emotional support he has. She assumes he's training to win their father's approval, which is wrong, but the medicinal pills she encloses are exactly what he needs. Yale stops sleeping properly, burns the pills instead of resting, and the next morning a notification tells him his strength has gone from 1 to 2. By the 7th day he's at strength 3 and vitality 4, and he walks onto the archery ground to meet a tall instructor with a hawk-like nose who calls him that famous bookworm, and hands him a bow deliberately too large for him. The man is an illegitimate son who clawed his way up and despises the legitimate children, and a bad bow is the one piece of spite he can defend as a lesson. Yale, who has read entire books on bows, puts it back and picks the right one. The instructor's expression shifts. He announces that Yale passed the test and says to call him Instructor Nosehawk, while Yale privately wonders what kind of father names a child that. On his first volley, out of 10 students, 3 hit the target, and Yale is one of them. Then the system does something it has never done. A new category appears. Dynamic quests triggered by actions instead of conditions. Shoot 100 arrows, reward archery innate talent at mid-grade. 100 that hit, mid-high. 100 consecutive hits, high grade. 100 consecutive shots dead in the center, and the reward is a perfect grade innate talent. Yale nearly laughs in the middle of the lesson because he can complete all 4. Each upgrade makes the bow more instinctive in his hands and makes his dexterity easier to raise. He clears the first 2 within days, and the arrow that finishes the 3rd pushes his dexterity from 7 to 8. That night he cashes in everything. Magic talent to mid-grade, then the elemental affinity quest, and then he checks what a perfect grade affinity actually got him. Thunder. One of the 3 hardest elements in existence to train. Yale sighs, reminds himself that a month ago he had nothing at all, and stops complaining. With 3 skill quests cleared, the main chain quest opens, and it puts 4 doors in front of him. Warrior, which guarantees rank 1 and instantly raises every physical stat to 9. Magus, which also guarantees it and hands him 2 more perfect grade affinities. Ancient Archer, a discipline dead for centuries, 50% odds, and vision that reaches 1,000 kilometers. And the Origin Path, which offers a 10% chance, 0 rewards for choosing it, and a warning that if anyone learns he walks it, his odds of survival are approximately none. He can never change his answer. Hold up real quick. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want more buried manhwa gems like this one. And I dare you to drop a comment saying you're here. Bet most of you scroll right past. Alright, back to it. Yale picks the Origin Path. The system offers to wipe his memory and let him switch, then tells him one thing first. The Origin Path is an ancestral legacy his past life discovered, and it is the exact reason his past life died. Yale is quiet for a long moment. Then he says he still chooses it. Every other path limits him. This one only tries to kill him, and he has already been killed once by not being enough. The first subquest surprises him. Become the apprentice of a sword master, with a reward that scales to how powerful the master is. There is exactly one real sword master in the Swordmad clan, an ancient eccentric whose true name and age nobody knows, who has refused every gifted child brought to him for 50 years. His last disciple had no talent at all, and when that boy was killed, the old man wiped out the clan responsible. Yale walks to his door and knocks. The old man tells him to call him Swordmad and gives him one question. If I order you to abandon everything, the books, the archery, the academy, and train only what I choose, will you accept? Yale doesn't think. He says never. Books make him better with a sword. Archery is long range and doesn't overlap. The academy is the only road back to his sister, and he will walk it no matter what. And the path he trains is his decision alone, and no master will ever change it. Then he hears himself, realizes he has been enormously disrespectful, and waits to be thrown out. Swordmad tells him the question was a test, that he likes stubborn children, and that he is now a disciple. Subquest complete. Reward, sword innate talent at perfect grade, plus a passive called Sword Mastery that boosts every stat while he holds a sword and, critically, ignores the mortal ceiling entirely. Checking his menu, Yale finds a second passive he never knew he had. Illusion immunity. No illusion can touch him unless he permits it. By morning the entire clan knows, and the reaction is unanimous disbelief that the eccentric who rejects prodigies chose a bookworm. Every person who used to think about bothering Yale quietly stops, because Swordmad exterminates bloodlines over his students. And in the one house where it should have mattered most, his father hears that his ignored son has been claimed by the most dangerous man in the family, and concludes the boy got lucky. He still does not send for him. 6 months later Yale finishes the 4th archery dynamic quest and takes his perfect grade archery talent along with a passive that sharpens his senses whenever he shoots. He has grown taller than boys his age. Nobody meeting him now would guess what he was half a year ago. Swordmad tells him to fight an exhibition match at the annual clan gathering. Yale doesn't care about the match. He cares that Ange is coming home. She nearly tackles him in the corner where he's hiding, teases him about how handsome training has made him, offers to introduce him to a friend's little sister, and gets shut down instantly. His opponent is Blacker, a recognized illegitimate son, almost 10, built like a wall, and openly furious that a bookworm took the master he wanted. Blacker is stronger. Yale is better. The exchange runs far longer than exhibition matches ever do, and Yale can feel his body failing before his technique does. So he bets everything on a feint, changes direction, and puts his wooden sword at Blacker's throat. He says 2 words and walks back to his sister without looking back. What he doesn't announce is that the winning move only worked because his agility hit 7 points mid-fight, which completed his second subquest and handed him a second perfect grade affinity. Light. Yale stares at his own menu and privately bets that if he ever gets a third, it'll be darkness. Then the clan chief begins his speech, and the entire hall goes blank-eyed at once. Every person in the room has fallen into an illusion. Every person except Yale. He works the logic in a heartbeat because attacking a clan on the one day all its power is gathered is suicide unless your target is someone who is only present on that specific day. He turns toward his sister and the shadow with the spear is already moving. Yale shoves Ange out of the line, which puts him in it. His sword shatters. The spear goes through his chest and throws him across the hall. Because he was under the world's protection and never provoked the attacker, the laws of the world cripple the assassin instantly, but it's already done. Swordmad arrives seconds too late, roaring for every healer in the building, and the last thing Yale hears is his sister screaming his name. He wakes up 16 months later. The clan and the academy emptied their vaults of herbs and treasures to keep him breathing, and healed him until she collapsed. The assassin's entire bloodline no longer exists, and whoever paid for the hit was never found, which is why his sister has not left the academy since and will not. Swordmad delivers all of it sitting in a chair by the bed, blaming himself for arriving late, and then adds one more fact without any particular emphasis, because it doesn't need any. In 16 months, his father never came to the room. Not once. Yale is cleared to train 4 days later, and that's when he finds out what those 16 months bought him. Swordmad opens a shallow cut across his forearm during a drill and watches it seal itself closed before either of them can comment on it. A strike lands that should double a child over, and Yale registers it as pressure rather than pain. He no longer needs his sister's stamina pills, because his body outperforms them. And alone in his room that night he tests the last thing, and for 5 seconds nothing within 5 meters of him can be interfered with by anything at all. When he asks how to improve it, the system tells him it runs on the time law, and Yale finally understands why the word absolute wasn't marketing. A time-based defense doesn't block an attack. Inside that field, the attack never happened. Once a month, and it costs him nothing. He has less than 22 months to max every stat before he turns 10, and his training has started returning less and less. When he asks the system why, the answer is the part of the origin path he was never told. It was the first path in the world, and every other discipline is a watered-down copy of it. The best lost paths raised 5 stats. The ancient archery path raised 4, which is why archers had a golden age. Anything raising 3 is bottom tier. The warrior path and the magus path, the 2 pillars his entire world worships, are bottom tier. Yale is trying to force his body to a perfection the world stopped producing centuries ago, and ordinary training will never get him there. He needs to nearly die for it. So he asks Swordmad to sponsor him for the beast trial, a sealed forest stocked with mortal-ranked beasts, where most participants become corpses. Swordmad tells him he doesn't need to. Yale tells him normal training has stopped working. Swordmad sighs and signs it, He enters on his 9th birthday and does what nobody else does, which is treat survival as the actual test. He identifies edible plants from memory backed by the database, because poison kills more participants than beasts do. He secures a tree by the only water source. A dynamic quest offers a stealth skill for 100 undetected kills, and then a second one appears with no stated reward at all, only a note that the quality and quantity of what he kills will decide it. That blank line drives him half mad with curiosity, and he abandons his safe little lake to go deep. He stalks a 2-star firewood tiger for days until both of them stumble onto something else. A massive white wolf, badly weakened by a newborn cub at her side, and a black wolf standing nearby. The tiger strikes the black wolf first, and the black wolf takes a scratch, turns and runs, abandoning its mate and its own newborn to save itself a little pain. Yale does the math coldly, because waiting means killing a 3-star and a 2-star monster for enormous rewards. Then he looks at the cub, and he sees a mother about to die and a father who already walked away, and he sees himself. He mutters that he's too soft-hearted and puts an arrow through the tiger's jaw. The fight nearly ends him. His strikes barely land. His regeneration is the only thing keeping him upright, and when the tiger finally lunges past him at the cub, Yale reaches it first and burns his 1 monthly shield. Everything within 5 meters stops, down to the blood hanging in the air. The tiger's strike lands, destroys his body, kills the cub, and then simply unhappens. The frost wolf slams into the stunned tiger while Yale stands inside that stillness feeling something crack open, and the system reports that his body has generated a time elemental affinity on its own. Cornered, the tiger sets itself alight in a suicide attack, and Yale refuses to dodge because dodging kills the cub. The frost wolf takes the blast with her own body. His upper half is burned to ruin, his pain tolerance jumps 3 levels in a second, and he crawls over and puts his sword through the tiger's skull. She is dying and both of them know it. For an entire month Yale hunts for her and her cub while she refuses to let go, roughly 30 times longer than those injuries permit, and when she finally closes her eyes a light leaves her body and shoots into Yale's forehead. The system catches it mid-transfer, reports that a beast legacy doesn't fit a human physique, remodels the whole thing to suit him and reads out the result. Complete 3-star frost wolf bloodline. High-grade water and darkness affinities. His magic talent fused and upgraded to perfect grade. Strength and agility forced to 10. A beast intuition passive, and a boost skill called Bloodline Force that doubles his strength and agility while ignoring the mortal limit. Yale bows to her grave, and the cub helps him dig it. Months later he finds the black wolf again, and the new bloodline burns with rage the moment he sees it. It's a fire wolf, it would have won that fight easily, and it is the cub's father. It tries to talk its way out, says it has too many mates and children to remember which one he means, and then suggests Yale should be grateful, since he got a powerful bloodline out of the arrangement. Yale says there's nothing left to discuss and takes its head off. He isn't proud of how easy it was. It just needed doing. On his 10th birthday the world's protection lifts, the origin path activates, and the blank dynamic quest finally pays out for a year of hunting. High-grade fire affinity, mid-grade earth, mid-low wind, low-grade poison, and an upgrade of his bloodline to complete 5-star. The first strand of origin chi forms, he officially becomes an origin path practitioner, and he receives a 3-strike sword skill, a lightning spell, and an unsealed ice claw from the wolf legacy. Every stat reads 10. He has 1 origin point, and the cub, who held back her own breakthrough until he had his, walks over and forms a life-bound contract with him. The kind a beast can only make with a human it considers family. The kind nobody can ever break. She tells him she just wants to stay with big bro. Yale names her Waiba and tells her she's his little sister now. Swordmad is waiting outside, and his eyes nearly leave his head when his disciple walks out of a death trap carrying a wolf cub and introduces her as family. He also has something to report. Today was supposed to be Yale's talent testing. His father blocked it, on the grounds that a boy like that can only have garbage talents and the clan shouldn't waste resources confirming it. Under his breath Swordmad adds that he thinks the man is an idiot. Yale's hearing is sharper now, and he catches it. He says he doesn't consider that man his father anyway, and that the only paternal figure he's ever had is standing right in front of him. Privately he's relieved, because his talents shift too often to survive public records. They're leaving when a clan elder blocks the path, sees Waiba, and demands the boy hand over clan property. Yale explains politely that a life-bound contract cannot be broken. The elder decides that disobedience carries a death sentence and attacks a 10-year-old, and Yale burns his shield again. The elder is still trying to understand why the child is unharmed when Swordmad kills him. The clan chief arrives shouting about the loss of an elder and argues that killing was excessive, then makes his second mistake by lecturing the man who exterminates bloodlines. Swordmad agrees to spare the elder's branch. Then he announces he is leaving the Swordmad clan, that he will not lift a finger if anyone destroys it, and that if the clan ever touches his disciple he'll finish all of them. The chief realizes far too late that losing their only deterrent, and probably Ange's academy backing with it, is 100 times worse than losing a branch. Somewhere in that collapsing house is a man whose standing was built on the clans, who spent 10 years refusing to look at his son, and who is about to watch both of those investments come due at once. At the academy gates, the guards stop Swordmad until a voice inside orders them to stand aside. Chairman Sainak, the founder and the only chairman the academy has ever had, greets his old friend and thanks Yale personally for saving Ange. Because Yale missed testing by 3 days and the next window is 3 months out, he can't be sorted by talent, and his answer is that he'd like to attend every class. All 9 elemental classes and all 5 weapon classes. 14 hours a day plus an hour with Swordmad, which leaves 9 if he never sleeps and eats fasting pills instead of meals. Sainak laughs and calls him as crazy as his master. Ange nearly knocks him over when she sees him, and accepts Waiba as a little sister without a second's hesitation. Then classes begin, and Yale's plan to stay low-key dies inside a single day. In the fist class, the biggest boy in the room is thrilled to draw the lucky kid who bought his way in, and learns otherwise. In the rod class, Yale realizes a rod can be swung like a sword, and the system rewards the insight with a passive letting him use sword skills while holding one, then tells him something larger that he can now generate and upgrade weapon talents just by practicing. In the sword class, a muscular student named George requests him specifically because they're the only 2 attending everything. They trade 3-strike battle skills, and George walks away realizing for the first time that he is not the best. In the archery class, a skinny blonde named Zach matches him arrow for arrow, ties him on every target, and announces he intends to drag archery back into its golden age personally. It's Zach who mentions the name first in passing, while they're stringing their bows. There's a student 2 promotions ahead who is still sitting at the peak of 3-star, not because he lacks talent but because he collects skills instead of advancing, and whose matches keep ending with his opponents forfeiting before the signal. Nobody spreads details because the people who know the details are the ones who learn them firsthand. Yale files the name away and thinks nothing more of it. In the light elemental class, where he is the only boy, a girl blankets the room in an illusion and Yale is the only person still blinking. The teacher tests him herself out of professional pride, fails, and then blurts out his surname after he made a point of not giving it. The girl is Aizu, and she has 2 perfect grade affinities and a reason to hate her clan. When she was 3, her mother vanished and her father sold her into an engagement with the most notorious old man in the seaside city, and the academy's own law forbidding early marriage is the only thing keeping her alive. Her entire survival plan is to become famous enough that her clan won't dare offend the academy by touching her. She idolizes Ange, copies her hairstyle, and when she sees Yale's face at the mention of his clan name, she recognizes it instantly, because it's the face she makes in the mirror. In the fire elemental class, she tries to impress him with a fireball, keeps feeding it past her own limit when he doesn't react, and loses it. The system warns Yale before anyone notices. He shouts, the teacher shields the class, and Yale pours all 5 of his origin points into 5 simultaneous ice claws in liquid form so they fuse into one enormous shield, disguising the technique as a common water spell. It blocks nearly everything and leaves burns that heal before anyone looks twice. Then he picks up a frozen, backlashed Aizu and carries her to a seat like it's the obvious solution, completely unaware of how that reads to 20 watching classmates. What he doesn't mention is that the improvisation created something the world has never seen. The system logs it as an origin skill, water battle armor, an armor that shifts freely between liquid and solid and takes the shape of any weapon, usable only by origin path practitioners. A hidden achievement fires, handing him a perfect grade water affinity, 2 more skills, and a full refill to the mortal ceiling. And 1 new line rewrites his timeline. Alternative route to origin level 2, execute a complete origin skill, and trigger the world's resonance. The deadline he'd been dreading is now something he can clear whenever he likes. He waits until that night on his sister's private grounds, with Swordmad watching and the strongest formation in the academy overhead. Water sheathes his body and hardens into ice at the vital points, and multicolored light floods the sky for 100 meters, which is the world reacting to a technique that has never existed. Swordmad tells him to attack with everything, and a 10-year-old fights a legend for 10 straight minutes, closing with a spear of water that becomes a rain of ice shards mid-flight. He breaks through before his first day of classes is over, and every point of understanding he'd accumulated past his old ceiling dumps into his new limits at once. Strength 14, Agility 14, Intelligence 15, Wisdom 15. Later that same night Swordmad is summoned to Sainak's tower, where a figure in a black cloak is waiting. It isn't a person or even a clone, only an incantation of someone's will, and the pressure coming off it could erase both of them together. Swordmad bows lower than anyone has ever seen him bow. More than 10 years ago this thing made him promise to accept a disciple who didn't exist yet, describing a bookworm who would suddenly go mad for training and ask to learn the sword having never held one. He thought it was nonsense until Yale knocked. Sainak has met it too because it's the one who told the academy about Ange before her own clan could test her. Tonight its message is short. It bears the city no ill will. But if either of those two children dies or suffers an irreparable loss, it will erase Nasisai City and everyone connected to it. Alone above the tower afterward, it says they shouldn't meet directly yet, that the world's reaction to an ordinary new skill and an origin skill differ slightly and Yale is lucky it was there to smother the difference, and that the day Yale understands his own past life is the day they'll finally meet. Then it adds one more thing, that it still owes him for what it did back then. Ange is running a plan of her own. Within a day she has Aizu moved into the house on the logic that Yale can't have a girl walking to the dorms after midnight, sweetened with private healing lessons and unlimited access to hugging Waiba. Aizu, who has never had anyone be gentle with her, accepts, and when she admits she's mediocre with a sword and no real teacher would waste time on her, Yale tells her he'd never held one either before someone chose to teach him, and that he'll teach her himself. She calls him master exactly once, goes red, and he begs her never to do it again. He doesn't realize he's walking the same road Swordmad walked, and when Swordmad later explains that reaching the expert stage requires abandoning techniques that suit yourself and learning to see the sword through someone else's body, and that teaching is the shortcut, Yale has already been doing it for weeks. In the healing class taught by Ange's own master, he gets stuck on a question. What kind of healing is his own regeneration? It leaves no scars, which rules out natural healing, and shows no elemental trace, which rules out everything else. Then it lands. Time. His wounds don't close, they unhappen. Ripples of unconscious healing roll off his body and erase Aizu's internal backlash instantly. And the teacher recognizes them because she has seen them once before, from Ange. His healing affinity jumps to high grade, his time affinity to mid, and he comprehends time healing, a spell costing 20 origin points per second, double everything he has. Meanwhile his shield has quietly rewritten itself. 10 meters, 10 seconds, once a week. But the part that keeps him awake is simpler. Two siblings do not both awaken the same time-based legacy spell by coincidence. That is a bloodline, and it can't come from his father's side, which leaves the mother he was told died giving birth to him, a woman with a bloodline like that. Something in the story he's been fed his entire life stops fitting. A month later, Ange breaks through to rank 1 and the academy throws a party. The same day, the cloaked figure returns to Sainak's office and asks for a tournament in 2 weeks, restricted to 3-star and below, rewarding the top 8 instead of the usual winner. The prize is 8 entry slots to a special realm opening in the Imperial City. It builds a teleportation portal beside the arena with a wave of its hand, hides it, and orders Swordmad to guide them. Alone, it notes that Yale cannot reach rank 1 stuck in a backwater city, that the realm is his best chance, and that it honestly doesn't know whether the current Yale survives it. 29 students register. Yale scans the list and the name Zack mentioned on the archery range is on it. Heruk, 12, the oldest competitor, and the favorite descendant of the ancestor of the most powerful clan in the city, which is why the academy has spent years pretending not to notice what he does to people. Only 4 competitors are still 2-star, and all 4 come from Yale's promotion. Yale, George, Zack and Aizu. Yale takes his first match by using his free hand to cast lightning into an opponent who forgot swordsman can cast, and the dynamic quest for winning starts paying out stat points per round. He clears the second without hurting his opponent, who forfeits out of respect. Aizu wins hers by remembering that mages forget bodies exist. Then Zack draws Heruk. He crosses the arena faster than Zack can track and catches him by the throat, which means Zack cannot speak, which means he cannot forfeit. Heruk announces that archery is a trash path with no future. Then, smiling like a child with a new toy, he tears the boy's limbs off one at a time, scatters the energy inside his body, and throws the wreckage off the stage. None of it breaks a single tournament rule. He orders that only natural healing be used, which sounds merciful and is the cruelest instruction available, because natural healing seals a wound in a way nothing else can reverse. Not one teacher moves. Ange reaches him first and pours time healing into him until she's completely drained, restoring all of it. And when Heruk demands to know why she ruined his work and informs her she's his slave now, Sainak's voice crosses the arena promising to stop caring who his ancestor is. George and Aizu are already moving when Yale stops them, because striking first hands Heruk a legal excuse to kill them in self-defense. And something in Yale changes. Instead of losing control, he goes cold, the way he did once with a wolf, a trait bleeding through from a life he barely remembers. Swordmad reads his disciple's face across the arena and silently decides that whatever happens here, Heruk is not coming back from the Imperial City alive. Yale's next opponent takes one look at that empty expression and offers to let him forfeit, assuming grief has taken the fight out of him. Yale stands with his sword down and no stance at all. The match starts, the boy charges, and the world seems to slow, which is the mental state every sword expert must enter once before crossing the threshold. Yale makes a single slash. No origin chi, nothing decorative, straight into the flaw in his opponent's posture, and the boy is off the stage. The arena goes silent. Swordmad is grinning because that plain little cut was sword mastery reaching expert level 1, and a hidden requirement fires that raises all 6 of his stats by 3 points at once. Against Lore, Heruk's girlfriend, who spends the walk to the stage taunting Aizu about being a toy and then offers to take Yale as a second boyfriend, he asks one question: whether she thinks the way Heruk thinks. She says of course. So he opens dozens of shallow cuts across her in seconds, including her face, remarks that the aftereffects should remind her who's superior, then casts basic healing to close every wound instantly and lock all of them in as permanent scars before knocking her off the platform. Heruk opens the final exactly the way he opened Zack's, catching Yale by the throat before he can react, and tears off his right arm, then his left, taking his time with it. Yale's pain tolerance climbs 5 levels while it happens. He feels every second. Then he vanishes and reappears on his side of the stage without a scratch, because he triggered his shield the instant the referee spoke and endured the full 10 seconds deliberately, so that Heruk would be as deep in his own enjoyment as possible when it all unhappened. Water battle armor and bloodline force go up together, putting his strength and agility at peak 4-star, a full realm above his opponent, and he electrifies the entire armor before landing a lightning-infused 3-strike skill from both hands at once. Then he shapes the armor into a bow, uses his own sword as the arrow, and drives it through Heruk's body, because Heruk called archery worthless and Zack loved it more than anything in the world. The volley of thin ice blades that follows isn't aimed randomly. Yale targets the exact checkpoint's energy circulates through, damage that's nearly impossible to detect and, without time healing, nearly impossible to repair, and the only 2 people in the academy who can cast time healing are him and his sister. Yale wins the tournament, and the handful of people in the stands strong enough to see clearly understand that what just happened was a time technique and not an illusion. Then Sainak announces the prize, reveals a portal nobody knew existed, and gives the top 8 5 minutes to leave for the Imperial City. Yale says goodbye to his sister, picks up Waiba, and asks her to tell Zack when he wakes exactly how Heruk lost, and to make sure she mentions the bow. The Imperial City runs on different rules, and Swordmad recites them on the walk to the gates. Only nobles and the Imperial family may use surnames, and a commoner who uses one pays with their life. You bow to anyone who has one, and none of them are geniuses here, because the entrance fee at an Imperial Academy would cost the Nisisai Academy half its total wealth. If any of them seeks death, he tells them, they will die, and he will not intervene. The special realm has 5 noble clans and the Imperial family sending 5 children each, and everyone else is cannon fodder, bodies to spread out and spring the traps so fewer noble children die. Yale is one of the few who knows it and doesn't mind, because it confirms that whatever's inside is worth the risk. He steps through and lands in a room full of children vomiting on the floor, minus his own classmates, who were scattered elsewhere. 2 people aren't vomiting. Heruk, still unconscious, and Yale, whose pain tolerance covers even this. For noble children notice. Hyrk, a natural leader from the clan that makes the Empire's spatial artifacts, Jean, warm, a healer and Kermu's fiancé. Nerve Revgen of the imperial family, tiny, doll-faced, monosyllabic, and the best survivalist among them. And Hyrk Hyron, an elitist who states outright he'd rather die than mix with commoners, until Circa points out that pride is useless to a corpse and Yale reveals he can heal, at which point Hyrk decides healers don't count as commoners. Yale bows the moment they look at him, exactly as instructed, and gets invited in. Nerve takes one look at Weiba, says the word cute, and refuses to release her for the remainder of the expedition. Within an hour that decision saves her life. The first zone is laced with permanent illusions no clan artifact was built to detect, and Nerve walks straight toward a bottomless pit her eyes report as solid floor. Yale catches her shoulder. Kermu throws a stone into the path and they listen for an impact that never comes. Nobody says it aloud, but the group's survival now rests entirely on the one commoner they nearly refused. They tint Yale's boots and follow his footprints, and crossing a hall that appears to be an empty room, and is actually a minefield of pits, poison pools and spikes, takes them 2 hours. The first legacy on the wall is an illusion that wraps the caster's own body, hiding appearance and faking a lower realm. Yale masters it in half a day, and only then notices that the decorative pictures beside it are not decorative. They're a second legacy hidden behind an illusion, readable only by someone who both mastered the first spell and can see through illusions to begin with. It gives him shape shift, which merges illusion with reality so the changes are physically real and last until he cancels them. Circa mastered the same spell and can see nothing on that wall at all. The forest zone runs on a different rule, and the bodies they pass are the evidence. Yale is the one who works it out, that in each area the legacy is hidden inside the danger rather than around it. First zone, illusions. Here, the monsters, so they hunt a 6-star eagle, and it nearly finishes them. Kermu opens with a wind blade laced with the space element and then can't move for several seconds. Yale's armor shatters. Hyrk goes down. And when the eagle abandons Yale and dives at the support line instead, Nerve shields Circa, absorbs the next hit herself, and Weiba is caught in it. The system tells Yale his beast will be dead in minutes. He queries the database and gets 2 options, 5 straight seconds of time healing, which is impossible for him, or 1 second combined with blood from a monster far stronger than her. Which means the eagle has to die right now. Yale's face empties out, and he jumps at the descending eagle with a lightning-wreathed sword in each hand. His teammates watch him get turned into paste in midair, then watch him reappear a heartbeat later above it, unharmed, driving an ice spear down through its back while its body is still numb. Kermu breaks its neck on the ground. Yale soaks Weiba in the blood, forces her to drink, burns emergency recovery to refill himself, and casts time healing for 1 second before collapsing. He wakes a day later to find her alive and stronger, and Circa standing over him asking who he is. She's the only one who recognized both the spell he used on the wolf and the time ripples off the skill he used in midair. She asks about his clan, his city, his mother, and when he says he knows nothing about his mother except that he started to doubt she died the way he was told, Circa relaxes and explains. Time healing is the Jean clan's bloodline legacy, and nobody outside that bloodline can cast it in the mortal realm. In 20 years, exactly 1 Jean woman left the clan to marry an unknown man in a backwater city, and it is the city he just named. Yale's mother was Circa's aunt. They are cousins, which means the man who spent 10 years refusing to look at his son, who called his talents garbage without testing them, who let a wife's death curdle into a decade of contempt, married a genius from one of the 5 noble houses of the empire, and never once told either of his children what she was. His entire clan could be flattened by any one of those families without effort. He was never the one doing the son a favor by tolerating him. Circa's warning is immediate. There is a faction inside the Jean clan that was furious when that woman left. One that would rather quietly kill her son and apologize afterward than let another bloodline hold their monopoly on time healing. Yale is to tell no one and use it in front of no one until she has spoken to her mother. Kermu backs his fiancée out loud and privately refuses to believe in coincidences. He remembers his grandfather describing a cloaked incantation that appeared at the meeting where the noble clans divided the realm slots, powerful enough to intimidate a room of elders, asking for 8 free slots for some commoners. 8 is exactly what Yale's academy received. Something with that much reach could have placed him in this specific group deliberately, knowing his abilities and knowing whose blood was in his veins, and simply waited for him to slip. The eagle's blood does something else too. Yale absorbed it, and the system upgrades his bloodline from 5-star Frostwolf to 6-star Frostwinged Wolf, pushes his wind affinity to high grade, maxes his agility, and pulls a legacy out of the blood itself. Wind wings. Yale spreads translucent wings in front of 4 noble children and lifts off the ground at a realm where flight is supposed to be impossible. They vote to leave before something worse finds them, and the next zone is open water. Yale freezes a path across it 1 ice spear at a time, refueled by Kermu's endless recovery pills. And by the end of a single day, the skill has climbed 12 levels and his origin points sit at 28. They stop on a small island, find nothing, and are turning to leave when Waiba plants herself and refuses to move, telling Yale in her small broken way that there is something here. Kermu is the one who realizes some things are found with a nose instead of eyes. She leads them to a boulder. Hyrk hauls it aside, and underneath is a passage sloping down into an underwater cave with legacy written all over it. They're deep inside the corridor when Yale hears a laugh, and killing intent floods off him before he has consciously decided anything, because he would know that laugh anywhere. That laugh belongs to Heruk, and a second one answers it, which means he isn't alone. The corridor opens up and there are 8 of them, and a 9th boy on the floor in a state that leaves it unclear whether he's still breathing. Yale recognizes him. It's the swordsman he beat with a single plane slash in the tournament. Heruk is counting out loud, saying that's the second one and he only needs 5 more, which tells Yale 2 things at once. Somebody from his academy is already dead, and Lore is on that list too. Kermu recognizes the group instantly, because 3 of them are from his own clan. Craig leads them, a Kirk who despises Kermu for the position he holds and who has spent years doing things a noble shouldn't do without ever leaving evidence. 2 more are Hyrk, from Hyrk's clan, and they open by telling Hyrk that they've already promised his little sister to Heruk as a recruitment gift. Hyrk has a sister whose body can never practice, and every scrap of status he's ever earned was earned to shield her from a clan that worships strength. There's a Jean and an Imperial too. The special realm is exactly what they wanted. A place with no witnesses and no punishment. Heruk demands Yale be handed over. And Circa, who has no siblings and just found out she has a cousin, loses her temper and shouts that a commoner can't touch him. The Jean boy in the other group catches the wrongness in that sentence immediately and needles her about cheating on her fiancé in front of him. And Circa snaps back that Yale isn't a commoner. He's her cousin. The words are barely out before she understands what she's done. The Jean boy does the arithmetic out loud. Her mother had exactly 1 sister, the traitor. So this is the traitor's son, and paying for his mother's crime with his life is now clan business. Nerve, who barely speaks, says 2 words in Yale's defense and gets called a disgrace to the Imperial family for it. Then Heruk asks why they're wasting time on identities when nobody will ever know what happened here, and Craig smiles and says that's exactly why he recruited him. Both sides brace. Neither moves. And then one of the Hyrn boys offers Hyrk a deal. Kill your own companions and we'll forgive you and let you join us, and Hyrk's mind breaks on it. Yale and Kermu both shout at the same instant, because they can feel what's coming. Hyrk charges anyway. 2 steps in, he triggers a trap, and the ceiling comes down on every member of Yale's group. The other side watches them get crushed and starts celebrating. Craig's status in the clan is secured. The unsociable princess is finally gone. And the Jean boy tells Heruk he wants to be taken to that backwater city, because the traitor had a daughter too, and Heruk cheerfully offers up Ange and adds that if an academy tries to protect her, they'll simply kill the entire academy for the disrespect. They leave laughing. Behind the rubble, which has sealed the corridor completely, 6 people who were dead a moment ago are standing without a scratch, and 5 of them have gone white. Yale calculated the field's radius under a collapsing ceiling and caught everyone inside it. They all felt themselves die. They remember it perfectly. Nobles are trained to execute offenders and to compete brutally with each other. But none of them have ever been put in genuine mortal danger, and the memory of being crushed to death is now sitting permanently in their heads. Yale, who has pain tolerance and considerable practice, is fine. His skill levels up from being crushed. Hyrk goes to his knees and apologizes. Circa cries because she told Yale to hide his identity and then announced it to the worst possible audience in the realm. Kermu shuts the spiral down because none of it can be undone and Yale already handled it. Yale thanks Nerve for speaking up and asks why she did, and her answer is that if he dies, Waiba dies and Waiba is not allowed to die. Then he gives them something to walk toward. Every person they've met entered from somewhere different, which means the realm is probably circular and every path bends inward. If that's right, they'll meet that group again at the center, and the best legacy will be waiting there too. He came up with the theory 10 seconds ago mostly to get their heads up, but the effect is immediate. Nobody wants to quit anymore. And his new subquest reads, Kill an evil human, reward, increased origin point recovery. Yale already knows who he has in mind. Hold up real quick. Smash that like and subscribe if you're enjoying this one. And go ahead, drop a comment so I know you made it this far. Bet half of you won't. Alright, let's keep going. The next zone is volcanic, all magma rivers and heat that drains them even through Nerve's cooling spell. Circa hits her limit first. Hyrk refuses to turn back, because he needs a legacy that suits him and he needs it now, and Yale volunteers to go with him for a reason he doesn't share. He can feel the fire element in the air, and he can feel his body absorbing it. He wants somewhere hotter. They cross a magma pool on wings they learned from a dead eagle, and inside the cave the heat scrapes his skin raw and heals it in the same second, over and over, driving his regeneration and pain tolerance up level after level. They're looking at a passage buried under lava when a scream comes out of it. Hyrk hears a stranger. Yale hears Aizu. He tells Hyrk he'll meet him on the other side, coats himself in water battle armor, and dives into the magma. Somewhere in that swim, his fire affinity crosses from high grade to perfect, and he doesn't stop to look. He surfaces in a chamber in a state that would fool anyone into thinking he's finished, which is exactly what the bulky boy with the spear thinks, standing over Aizu while she bleeds from a hole in her chest. Yale takes the last of his armor, throws it at the boy's forehead as water, and freezes it in the final instant. Punches straight through his skull. It's the first human being Yale has ever killed, and he registers it the way he registers killing a beast, because anyone who touches his friends has already used up his compassion. The subquest completes and his recovery rate doubles. Then the actual work starts. The wound won't close naturally, so basic healing is useless and time healing is the only option, and 1 second of it costs more than everything he has. He heals her, swallows Kermu's recovery pills, waits, heals her again, and repeats it over and over, gaining a little ground each time. He doesn't dare burn emergency recovery, because if one final cast isn't enough, he'll be empty and she'll die. She survives because of the pills, because of the recovery rate he earned 90 seconds earlier, and because of a bracelet she found somewhere in this realm that's making her immune to a heat that would otherwise have killed her before he arrived. Hyrk shows up much later by the long route, sees the corpse, and immediately suggests looting it. It's a spatial ring, which is the one thing Yale has wanted for months, and Hyrk throws it to him without a word, because Yale made the kill and that's the rule. Inside is a Jean clan badge, and Circa nearly shouts at him to bind it the moment she sees it, because only Jean blood can, and having one might make a stranger think twice before deciding his story is a lie. The dead boy turns out to have been a Jean too. A bully so unpleasant that even Craig's group expelled him, which means nobody will come asking. They throw him in the magma. Yale carries Aizu out on his back. She wakes up 2 days later in a mountain range, and the first thing she asks is whether the man who attacked her is dead. Yale says yes calmly, and it lands harder than the wound did because Aizu had learned fire shield hours earlier and hesitated to use it, since using it might have killed him. That hesitation is why she nearly died. When she panics that the boy was a noble, Circa tells her he was from her own clan and that the clan is better off, and Aizu bows so low it's uncomfortable, because a month in this realm has taught her exactly what nobles are. Nobody tells her Yale is one of them. If she knew, she'd never look at him the same way again. Yale, meanwhile, has noticed something about his own system. The main chain quest subquests used to be fixed. They aren't anymore. When Kermu says out loud that they'll have to climb the mountain, the subquest silently rewrites itself into, find a tunnel through the mountain range. And Yale suggests looking for one knowing full well it exists. They find it in an hour, and 2 girls who did not want to climb a mountain are extremely pleased about it. Inside they meet the Larkin clan, 5 members traveling alone because their clan ordered it. The Larkins are the strangest of the 5 noble houses. They accept more commoners than anyone, they despise liars to the point of killing over it, and every scrap of standing in that clan is decided by swordsmanship and nothing else. Their leader is Durgan, an expert stage swordsman with a position even better than Kermu's, and Kermu spends the entire conversation trying very carefully not to mention that Yale uses a sword. Then Aizu, trying to be helpful, announces that her master is a great swordsman. Durgan's whole face changes. He learns Yale is at the expert stage, learns his master is a man the Larkin elders once tried and failed to recruit, and inside of 2 minutes has decided that Yale will marry his little sister, whose sword talent is the highest the clan has produced since its founding, and who is apparently also very pretty. When Aizu's expression curdles, Durgan patiently explains that his sister has the right to refuse, that her bloodline can't be allowed to die out, and then sweetens it by offering Aizu a position as a maidservant in the clan with a real path to membership, which would get her out of her own engagement entirely. Aizu goes quiet, because that future is worse than the one she wants and infinitely better than the one waiting for her. Yale says nothing at all, having concluded that this is exactly why his master left the imperial city, and privately deciding to run the moment he's out. The room with the next legacy is full of stone statues, which stop being statues the second anyone approaches the wall. Golems don't feel pain, regenerate faster than Yale does, and only stop when their cores break, and only 3 people present can hit hard enough to reach a core. Yale, Kermu, and Durgan take 6 each. Hyrk holds off 6 more with nothing but defense. Nerve boosts her own group and pointedly does not boost the Larkins. Circa nearly drowns in the number of people she has to heal. They get the spell in the end, and Durgan leaves with a promise to come find Yale outside, to which Yale silently replies that he intends to be very hard to find. For days later they exit the tunnel into a patchwork zone stitched together from every previous area, and past that they reach a circular white room where the trap detectors go berserk. Yale walks in alone anyway and finds writing on the ceiling that can't be seen from outside. Wait here until the correct time. They wait 2 weeks. Then the room shakes. A space-time passage rips open, and it takes them. 4 groups land in the same enormous hall at once. Durgan's 5. A group of 9 including all 5 members of the Tofesh clan, who forge weapons rather than fight and treat special realms as tombs full of artifacts. Craig's group. And in Craig's group, dragged along as entertainment, is George, covered in wounds, with his right arm torn off and the stump closed by natural healing, which any healer in the room can read at a glance. It means the arm is gone permanently and it was made permanent on purpose. Zack could be restored. George cannot, and Yale goes colder than his own teammates have ever seen him. At the center of the hall is an altar behind a barrier, and on the altar is a sword. A Hyrk boy from the 3rd group sprints at it, decides his strength will break through, and is erased so completely that not even ash is left. Nobody looks at that sword the same way afterward. Craig gives the order to finish the people who should already be dead, and Durgan stops him and asks why. Craig claims it's clan duty, the son of a Jean traitor. Durgan tells him flatly that he's lying and needs practice, that he doesn't know or care about Yale's mother, and that nobody pays for their ancestors. Then Heruk, whose ego has outgrown the fact that he is technically still a commoner, tries to recruit Durgan by bragging about what they've done to George, and Durgan decides to kill him for the disrespect. The Hyrk boy protests that Heruk is already engaged into their clan, and Durgan's answer is that they engaged him to Hyrk's sister without her consent or the clan's approval. And when the boy sneers that a useless sister is worth less than a recruit, Durgan stops considering this a dispute and starts considering it a duty. He announces that Yale is engaged to his own little sister and therefore nearly a brother-in-law, which is simultaneously enormous protection and a headache Yale will be dealing with for years. The Tofesh clan declines to take any side and goes to study the barrier. Heruk opens by grabbing George as a hostage, and drops it immediately because he already promised to torture him regardless, so it buys nothing. The battle splits. Yale draws Heruk plus a booster plus a dedicated healer, which means every wound he opens gets closed in real time. So he watches Kermu fight Craig instead. Kermu's signature technique is a sword skill built on the space element, the thing that made him valuable to his clan, and Yale looks at it and thinks about how time and space are related. He tries it. Heruk screams as a wound opens on his arm for the first time. It isn't perfect. He tries again and the wound is smaller but takes far longer to heal. He keeps refining it in the middle of a fight, ignoring everything else until the system logs something new. A law skill. Time/accelerates time on whatever defense it meets until the guard rots off, and decelerates time inside the wound it leaves so the injury refuses to close. At full power, without borrowing from the time law directly, it would cost 10,000 origin points. Here, where the laws sit thick in the air, it costs him nothing at all. His time affinity jumps 2 grades while he's using it. Every noble watching assumes he awakened an extraordinarily pure Jean bloodline, because the alternative, That a 10-year-old invented a law skill by watching someone else's doesn't occur to anyone. Heruk's healer shouts that the wounds are becoming unhealable, and Heruk solves that problem by grabbing his own healer and throwing him into Yale's next strike. Yale cuts the man in half before he understands what's happened, and the healer dies without ever learning why. Then Heruk grabs George and hurls him at the barrier, purely to create an opening. Yale catches George meters short of it, and Heruk hits him with everything he has, not to wound but to launch him backward into the barrier that erased a boy earlier. Yale had already triggered absolute protection, expecting exactly that. He doesn't die. He doesn't even bounce. He passes straight through the barrier without resistance, because his field doesn't cancel the barrier, it opens it. The barrier is not a wall. It is a lock, and his legacy skill is the key, and Yale understands in that instant that none of this has been coincidence. The subquest updates while he's still standing there. Take the sword. Be the last human left in the realm. When his hand closes on the hilt, an old voice greets him as an old friend, and Yale's mind is pulled into a space inside the blade where a smith who looks exactly like the statue outside is waiting. It's a recording, not a ghost. The man cannot hear him. He simply says what he prepared, long ago, for a friend he knew would come. They forged this sword together, the smith and the man Yale used to be, out of impossible materials and one man's very strange ideas, making it turned an ordinary craftsman into a legend whose services were requested from other worlds. Centuries later, that friend came back with his soul visibly dissipating, doomed, past any hope of reincarnation, and asked him to guard the sword after his death. Then he led the smith to a place of his choosing and killed himself with his own blade. Because the sword has two functions. Kill someone wicked with it and their soul is tortured until it dissipates entirely, with no reincarnation. Ever. Kill someone who is not wicked and their soul is forced to reincarnate regardless of what state it's in. The second one always seemed useless. It was the entire plan. It was how a dying man with a disintegrating soul bought himself another life, and it explains why Yale's memories came back to him in fragments. The old man never learned what was destroying that soul, only that whoever did it must be terrifying. After his friend's death, he founded a clan of smiths in the newly established Revgen Empire and named it after himself, so that his friend could find it in a future era. Tofesh, the same Tofesh whose 5 descendants are standing outside right now studying the barrier. He apologizes that they'll never meet again, because he lacked the resolve to run himself through with the sword the way his friend did, and his soul is already gone. He says he lived a good life. He says his creations will outlast him, and that this sword is the best of them. Yale returns to his body, takes the sword, and the barrier collapses because the sword was always its core. The blade is soul-bound. Nobody but Yale's soul can lift it, in any life, and Heruk finds this out when Yale crosses the hall and starts cutting. Terrified, Heruk makes the one decision available to him and breaks through to 4-star, which is forbidden inside the realm. The realm has already lost its core. Now its laws have been broken by an intruder, and it chooses the simplest correction available. Total self-destruction with everyone still inside. The entire realm was only ever a delivery mechanism for one sword, and every other legacy in it was bait to draw in enough children to hide that fact. Its purpose is complete. Yale asks the system for a way to stop it and is told there isn't one, only that he, holding the core, cannot be harmed by it. Heruk charges him one last time, and Yale takes off all 4 of his limbs in a single second. He tells him he is the most despicable person he has ever met, that his group is already trying to decide whether to kill him before the realm does, and Heruk laughs and says he doesn't care, they'll all die with him. Yale tells him he isn't going to simply die, that his soul will be tortured until it stops existing, and cuts his head off mid-sentence. He takes no pleasure in it. Knowing the fate waiting on the other side is enough. Then he starts working the real problem. The system tells him that as the core's owner he can leave from anywhere, and that he can force every exit in the realm to relocate to his position, at the cost of collapsing all the others permanently the moment he stops holding it open. Kermu buys him time without asking a single question. Nerve throws up barriers. Circa heals everyone at once. Hyrk takes every wound he can attract and stops being able to be healed, trying to pay off a mistake with his life. Takes Yale 15 minutes to open a hole 1 person wide. The Larkins go first. Then Yale shouts at the Tofesh clan, people he has no relationship with and no reason to save, to move, and Berg bows and says her clan will not forget it. Durgan picks up George, who Aizu can't lift, and throws him through, then follows to find him a healer, shouting on the way that Yale is engaged to his sister, and is therefore not allowed to die. Kermu tears Hyrk out of the fight and throws him in before his injuries finish him, then sends Circa after him, then goes himself. Only Nerve is left, holding a barrier that is seconds from failing, and Yale tells her the passage isn't wide enough for two while it's closing and she needs to go. She steps in carrying Waiba, and at the last instant Waiba jumps back out of her arms because Waiba has worked out what Nerve hasn't. Yale was never planning to follow. The subquest requires him to be the last human left in the realm. Every friend he has is now on the other side, and everyone remaining is an enemy. He tells Nerve he'll be fine and that they'll meet again, and the hole closes. Craig asks whether he's chosen to die with them. Yale tells him he can leave whenever he likes, and that the only reason he stayed this long was the exit. So they decide to kill Waiba instead, on the assumption that a cub is easy prey and it will hurt him. Waiba unfolds a pair of wings and lifts out of reach, because her bloodline mutated alongside his, and she learned shape-shift too and has been hiding them for fun. She is a 6-star bloodline monster in the shape of something harmless. Yale cuts the nearest attacker in half and informs the rest that until a moment ago he'd intended to simply kill them. Takes about 10 minutes. Craig is last, and Craig cannot process it, screaming that he has offended and murdered people far above this boy's station and nothing has ever happened to him. Yale tells him that's precisely the miscalculation, and that his whole group spent this expedition seeking death until they found it. Craig's treasured sword shatters against Yale's, because the blade absorbs the space law he was trying to fight with, and his final surprise attack fails against someone who was never going to lower his guard. The kill hands Yale a space affinity absorbed out of a cursed soul, and the subquest pays out a second legacy skill. Time freeze with no cooldown at all, limited only by how well he controls the time law, which outside this place will buy him perhaps a single second. A single second is enough to decide a fight. Outside, Swordmad has been standing at the exit since the first month ended, watching a token that says Yale is alive while every child who isn't Yale walks out. Aizu, who has spent the whole realm terrified of nobles, is the one who tells Kermu, Circa and Nerve that the token exists and takes them to him. Circa asks for it. Swordmad hesitates, and then a voice only he can hear tells him to hand it over, so he does. She passes it straight to Kermu, because her own clan has factions she doesn't trust. Nerve doesn't say anything and doesn't stop looking at it. Lore's token is intact too, and Swordmad correctly guesses she fled with the first wave of retreating commoners the moment she overheard Heruk's plans for her, and decides she isn't worth hunting today. Inside the realm, Yale stops time. The self-destruction stops with it. He sits down on the altar with Waiba and starts absorbing the essence of a dying world, and he does not come out for the better part of a year. When he finally steps onto a hilltop somewhere, he is 11 years and 2 months old and he looks 14 because the essence didn't age him, it grew him. He is at the 6-star mortal realm and closing on the 7-star, with stats near 60 across the board where a year ago the ceiling was 10. His time affinity is perfect grade. His time healing costs half what it did. His regeneration has climbed to level 30. Absolute protection has doubled again in range and duration and now recharges every 3 days. The system's new appraisal function names the blade for him the space-time judgment sword, tied to the laws of time, space, life and death. And appraising it triggers one last piece of hidden essence, which resolves into a passive skill called Smith Mastery, because the old man had worked out that his friend had no talent for forging, and left him a way in as a parting gift. Waiba is 6-star too, still shaped like a cub because she likes being one, capable of resizing herself in a fight and hiding her realm from anyone not vastly stronger. Her potential is bound to Yale's, which means she can never surpass him and can always follow him. And when Yale opens his own status page, the name at the top has changed. It used to read Yale Roanmad. It reads Yale now. He isn't hiding a surname anymore. There simply isn't one, and the man who withheld one word for 6 years has finally been made irrelevant by a boy who stopped asking. He scans the horizon for anything he recognizes and finds nothing, because he hasn't landed near Nisisai City or the Imperial City or anywhere he's ever heard of. There is only one landmark in any direction, far off and enormous, and Yale has read about it in 100 books without ever seeing it once. Water, all the way to the edge of the world.